frightfully eager for the treat. "Oh, please let me," said the mole. So of course the rat let him. Packing the basket was not quite such pleasant work as unpacking it. It never is. But the mole was bent on enjoying everything, and although just when he had got the basket packed and strapped up tightly, he saw a plate staring at him from the grass, and when their job had been done, the rat pointed out the fork, which anybody ought to have seen, and at last of all, behold, the mustard pot, which he'd been sitting on without knowing it. Still, somehow the thing got finished at last, without much loss of temper. The afternoon sun was getting low, as the rat strolled gently homeward in a dreamy mood, murmuring poetry things over to himself and not paying much attention to Mole. But the mole was very full of lunch and satisfaction and pride, and quite at home in his boat, so he thought, and he was getting a bit restless besides, and presently he said, "Ratty, please, I want to row now." The rat shook his head with a smile. "Not yet, my young friend," he said. "Wait till you've had a few lessons. It's not so easy as it looks." The mole was quiet for a minute or two, but he began to feel more and more jealous of Rat, sculling so strongly, so easily along, and his pride began to whisper that he could do it every bit as well. He jumped up and seized the sculls so suddenly that the rat, who was gazing out over the water and saying more poetry things to himself, was taken by surprise and fell backward off his seat with his legs in the air for a second time, while the triumphant mole took his place, grabbed the sculls with entire confidence. "Stop it, you silly ass!" cried the rat from the bottom of the boat. "You can't do it. You'll have us over." The mole flung his sculls back with a flourish and made a great dig at the water. He missed the surface altogether. His legs flew up above him and his head, and he found himself lying on the top of a prostrated rat. Greatly alarmed, he made a grab at the boat, and the next moment over went the boat, and he found himself struggling in the river. Oh my, how cold it was! Oh, how very wet it felt! How it sank in his ears as he went down, down, down! How bright and welcome the sun looked as he rose to the surface, coughing and spluttering! How black was his despair when he felt himself sinking again. Then a firm paw gripped him by the back of the neck. It was the rat, and he evidently laughing. The mole could feel him laughing right down his arm, through his paw, and so into the mole's neck. The rat got hold of a skull and shoved it under Mole's arm, and he did the same on the other side of him, and swimming behind him, propelled the helpless animal to shore, hauled him out, and set him down on the bank, a squishy, pulpy, lumpy misery. When the rat had rubbed him down a bit and wrung out the wet out of him, he said, "Now then, old fellow, trot up and down the towpath as hard as you can, till you're warm and dry again, while I dive in for the luncheon basket." So the dismal mole, wet without, ashamed within, trotted about till he was fairly dry, while the rat plunged into the water again, recovered the boat, righted her, made her fast, fetched his floating property by the shore by degrees, and finally dived successfully for the luncheon basket, struggled to land it. When all was ready for at once more, the mole, limp and dejected, took his seat in the stern of the boat, and they set off. He said in a low voice, broken with emotion, "Ratty, my generous friend, I'm very sorry indeed for my foolish and ungrateful conduct. My heart quite fails me when I think how I might have lost that beautiful luncheon basket. Indeed, I have been a complete ass, and I know it. Will you overlook it this once and forgive me, and let things go on as before?" "That's all right, bless you," responded the rat cheerily. "It was a little wet to a water rat. I'm more in the water than out of it most days. Don't you think any more about it. And look here, I really think you'd better come and stop with me for a little while. It's very plain and rough, you know, not like Toad's house at all. But you haven't seen that yet. Still, I can make you comfortable, and I'll teach you to row and to swim, and you'll soon be as handy on the water as any of us.